Hi everyone, welcome back. I'm feeling very inspired today because I just launched a Kabbalistic Tarot series with my students, and today we were talking about the Tarot Tableau. I was giving some of my insights and reading techniques for that. And next week we're going to be doing the Cube of Space. Now these were both ideas that we first learned about from the writings of Paul Foster Case. And while we spend a lot of time getting into the techniques and the methods of using the tarot for contemplation in the classes, I thought it would be great to make a video, give a little bit of history and some background. I actually do have a deck to open today. And as I always like to do, we're going to have to dive a little bit further back. When we look at the origins of tarot as it intersects Hermetic Kabbalah, that is when the tarot started to become assigned to the Tree of Life and to the astrological and planetary and elemental correspondences, as well as the Hebrew letters. And these ideas we first see from occultists such as Eliphas Levi and Papus, who were French occultists, and their work greatly influenced the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. Yet what we find is that a lot of the outer order of the Golden Dawn and its teachings didn't really touch on the tarot. There was not much written about it. Now, the Order of the Golden Dawn was founded right around 1887, 1888. At that time, Paul Foster Case was just about 3 years old. So he comes along a little bit later. But who was in the Golden Dawn? Well, A.E. Waite, for one. And if you guys know tarot at all, you know this deck, the Rider-Waite Smith Tarot. And Smith and Waite were both members of that order. But the Rider-Waite Smith Tarot didn't come out until 1909. But by that time, the original Order of the Golden Dawn was already split into subgroups, and that all happened around 1903. So 6 years later, this deck comes out. A year after that, 1910, this book comes out, Pictorial Key to the Tarot. And this is a book that you can still sometimes get along with the tarot deck. It'll come in a little set. And it's pretty arcane. I mean, you think it was published in 1910. And once you have a deeper understanding and some of the esoteric aspects, it might make a little bit more sense to you. But I think that this book can be very intimidating to the newcomer of tarot. Now, I was taking a look at some of the Golden Dawn material, and one of the great source works for that is Regardie's Complete Golden Dawn System of Magic. And in this book, you'll find an entire volume, volume 9, which is dedicated to the tarot. And it's in that volume that you'll find the esoteric titles of the cards. But interestingly, you don't find the Hebrew letters there. You don't find all of the correspondences there. They're there for a few of the cards, but it's not explicitly stated. And it really doesn't seem like it was until Waite had been doing the work later, after the original teachings of the Golden Dawn, that the cards really started to get defined with the specific Hebrew letters and the correspondences. Now, you can see the correspondences throughout the Rider-Waite Smith deck. You see the moon on the High Priestess key. You see the Venus shield on the Empress. So some of those things are definitely in there, but they're not always obvious, and there's no indication of the Hebrew letters there. And the way that the Hebrew letters are assigned by the Golden Dawn correspondences are different than some of the older correspondences and some of those used today. So where did the correspondences originate? Well, some would say that Waite was working on them and decided to place the Aleph with the Fool. It was a Golden Dawn, and presumably Waite, who decided to make the Fool the 0 key and place it before the Magician, and also to switch the Strength card and the Justice card, making Strength the 8th key and Justice the 11th. And in this book published by Regardie, he says this: the following descriptions of the major arcana are taken primarily from the grade rituals of the order and are written by MacGregor Mathers. The descriptions of the keys to Lamed and Mem are taken from the Adeptus Major ritual. The remaining are brief improvisations adapted from several sources, most likely to fill in gaps in the knowledge, lectures, and rituals. So again, we see that there was not this really in-depth system in the original Golden Dawn. And the Lamed and Mem cards, that's Justice and the Hanged Man. And those keys are identified by their letter in this book. Rigardi goes on to say, from my present point of view, there are only 3 or 4 major works which the student should consult in this area. So he's giving the books that he suggests, and I could actually show them to you because they're all in my library. The first one that he mentions is this book, Pictorial Key by Waite. The second one he mentions is the Book of Thoth by Aleister Crowley, who was also a Golden Dawn magician for some time. He mentions the Encyclopedia of Tarot by Stuart Kaplan. I show this in a number of my videos. And he also mentions the Tarot Key to the Wisdom of the Ages by Paul Foster Case. So I want to actually show you guys a couple more books while I'm showing off books for some of the things that I recommend for my tarot students. The first is Meditations on the Tarot. This was actually published anonymously because it was written by, I believe it was a monk or bishop, and they would have risked being accused of blasphemy. But really, really beautiful and poetic expressions of the cards. The second, excuse my beat up cover here, is Kabbalistic Tarot by Robert Wang. This is the textbook for all of the workings with the Tree of Life. The book that I really love about the Thoth deck is Lon Milo Duquette's Understanding Aleister Crowley's Thoth Tarot. I find it to be great even if you don't use it with this deck. What he has to say about the cards, definitely you can apply it to any tarot deck. And the last one that I really, really love and suggest is Way of the Tarot by Jodorowsky. Now let's go back to Case. So he was a senior member of one of the US chapters of the Alpha A Omega, which was one of the offshoots that came out of the original Order of the Golden Dawn. And right at the beginning of the 20s, there was a lot of friction in the order, and a lot of that had to do with the fact that the people that were basically in charge were overseas, and they were trying to kind of dictate what was going on in America. And there were certain people that were publishing rituals, selling information, signing people up to correspondence courses, and not really having the authority to do so. And Case was pretty disgusted by the whole thing. And especially because a lot of works were being pirated and a lot of things were basically stated to be this mail order enlightenment. And you can actually read the correspondence that was sent back and forth between Case and those people in London that he was communicating with around this time in this book, which is the biography of Paul Foster Case by Paul Clark. And I definitely recommend that if you want really to get inside of what was going on at that time. Around 1921, at this point, Case has left the Golden Dawn, the Alpha A Omega, and he's in New York, and with a few other people, he forms Builders of the Adytum, the BOTA. Case starts writing his correspondence course, but he is not doing that claiming to be a part of any order, but he really strips out a lot of the occult and esoteric ritual practices, and he basically teaches the tarot and basic spiritual principles. Eventually, he goes on to publish a couple of books that both came out in 1947, one being The Key to the Wisdom of the Ages, the other one being Book of Tokens. 2 books which I still really, really suggest, and these were 2 books that were both given to me by my teachers early on when I was first learning Hermetic Kabbalah. Now, one of the things that we find out from Case's letters is that in those early years when he was studying the tarot, he did not have the modern day correspondences of the Golden Dawn with the letters and the tree and how that all lines up. No, he was actually coming up with that from his own contemplation, his own meditation. He talks about how he tried putting the cards in this different order and placing the Fool first and switching the 8 and the 11 key and placing Aleph with the Fool. And he did all of that on his own intuitively. He talks about reading an article written by Waite in some esoteric gazette where Waite describes the same thing. And then in 1909, when the Rider-Waite Smith deck is published, Case sees it and basically sees that it's verifying the conclusions he'd already come to. Now remember, the Rider-Waite Smith deck does still not have the Hebrew letters on it. So all of that was published later. When it comes to Golden Dawn manuscripts, anything that is an appendix that has the listing of the keys and the cards, I believe that to all have come out later. So Case takes it upon himself to make a new deck, which is based off of Waite's deck, but which has the Hebrew letters. And he also makes additional changes to it, to what he says, remove some of the blinds that Waite used. And some say that Waite was really known for omitting certain esoteric things to keep the secrets hidden. I don't know that that's necessarily true, but Case felt that with a few adjustments, the true meaning of the cards could be shown. Now, he also felt that it was absolutely necessary for students to color their own tarot deck. And so he had an artist whose name was Jesse Burns Park create his tarot deck. I couldn't find the exact date that came out, but I am guessing that was around the time of the founding of his order. He's writing the lessons, remember, in the 20s. That's what we're opening today. Now I have copies of the uncolored tarot deck because I've gotten those from the BOTA before. So like I said, Case felt that every student should color their own deck. But the deck that he created was so closely similar to Waite's deck. I've heard a couple different things, and one is that whoever it was that was publishing that was pretty furious about this whole thing, and that the agreement was that if Paul Foster Case was going to publish his deck, he could never do it in color. So that may or may not be the case. I don't know if that's because Waite or one of the publishers forced him not to. But the deck to this day has never been published in color. However, you can see the keys in color in the newer editions of Book of Tokens. You can see here it says the first color edition. This actually came out in 1989. Book of Tokens has really beautiful poetry, and you can see all of his version of the keys in full color. And you can see the Hebrew letter here with the Golden Dawn attributes. And you can also see that some of the keys look a little bit more like the Marseille deck than they do like the Rider-Waite Smith deck. So I found these on eBay, and like I said, you can still get the black and white version to color yourself. So that's what we see here. And it's a standard size card. You can see the builders of the Aditum logo on the back there, and all of the keys as they have been redrawn. And you see they look very, very similar, almost like a clone of the Rider-Waite, but the minors are more like a traditional Marseille deck. And the majors, this is funny that I turned to this key because the Huayra Font looks just like Case. Here, I mean, look at his picture and tell me that that's not him. I'm pretty certain that they modeled the Huayra Font after him. And some of these you would barely even notice that there's any difference. But then some of them have minor changes, like you can see the moon here added to the Hanged Man, and he's actually going underground. Look at the Death card. This looks much more like the Marseille deck than it does like the Rider-Waite Smith. Severed heads down here. And if we look at the Sun card, we can see rather than one child on a horse, we can see two children, again looking much more like the Marseille, but of course the Marseille does not have the Hebrew letters. Now this is the part that I'm actually really excited to show you guys. So ordering this, this is actually a hand colored version of the BOTA deck. Now if you look online, you will find that there are a lot of versions of hand-colored BOTA decks. People have taken pictures. Some people use colored pencil, some people use pen. And you know, there's various levels of artistic skill when it comes to that. But from what I could see from the photos, it looked like someone who actually had some pretty good artistic skill colored in these keys. So these are just the majors, and I'm sharing them with you for the first time. I did write to who I bought these from to see if they had any information, if they had who they belonged to. They never wrote me back. But this is an extra large size. And I really just want to honor this before I show it, because I have a feeling that somebody really poured their heart and soul into this work. And I just ask that you guys that are watching this video also just take a moment to acknowledge that somebody's magic really went into these. Here we see a card which has all the correspondences. And these are a little bit musty. You can definitely tell that they've been sitting in an attic or something. They're definitely not been colored recently. Here's the pattern on the trestle board. I'm going to go ahead and take the keys out. Oh my goodness, you guys. So, as you can see, absolutely beautifully colored by a real artist. Now, it appears that these have been sprayed or shellacked, perhaps. It looks like they put a silver edging on the edges of these cards. Now, the cards would normally have a specific color on the border, but that color has been placed down here in the title. And you can really see how much the artist took their time. And the whole point in doing this yourself is to really, really unlock these keys for you. And there's the Huayra Font I showed earlier. I mean, if I showed it to you from here, would you even think this was colored by hand? Probably not, right? They look that nicely done. Wow. I feel as though the heart of the artist is really coming through in these. There's the High Priestess. Here's one of the changes that Case made. See how the letters B and J have been changed to the Hebrew, Bet and Yod, for the pillars. There's the Magician. And of course, all of the colors are very specific. So there would have been instruction. I mean, look at the coloring on the dog, how they've just shaded that. So beautiful, right? There's Justice, the Hanged Man, the card corresponding to Mem. There's the Death card, again, quite beautiful there with the shading. This is one of the keys that I really love of the changes that were made. You'll notice this looks very different also from the Rider-Waite Smith. One of the things that we see above the head of Archangel Michael here is the rainbow of promise. And we know that on the Tree of Life, the Temperance card is right here. It's between the sun and the moon. And between the two luminaries, it stands as a very important key of alchemy, which is why Crowley decided to call this card art in his deck. It's the alchemical art, and we can see the combination of fire and water, not just water, as we see in the Rider-Waite Smith deck. We see the eagle and the lion, which are important figures in alchemy, and the bow from which the golden arrow is shot back up to the top of the tree. Here's the Devil card. Here's another change that we see in this deck. Now, if you look on the regular Rider card, you'll see these yods here, but they're just kind of randomly placed. We do see that there's 10 on one side and 12 on the other side. Count them in your Rider-Waite deck and you'll notice there's 10 and 12. You can see that here they've been organized into a pattern that's the double cube. And here they're organized into the pattern of Venus. Absolutely beautiful. One of the things that I told my students in class today was, when you're looking at the star card, let the stars twinkle. There's movement in these keys. Here's the Ibis, that's Thoth. The wolf is looking a little bit friskier and bushier than he does on the Smith version, right? There's the sun. And Judgment, and the World. Here's another adjustment that we see that rather than just holding these two wands, these actually become spirals. They're like a helix, like a DNA spiral. You see the 4 cherubic beasts. Wow, this is a very, very special thing, isn't it? Thank you guys so much for letting me share these with you. Before I use these keys, there will be some considerations and connection that I will do through meditation to the person who obviously these were a very special magical tool, and I want to honor that. But I thank you guys again so much for tuning in. This is the stuff that I love the most. I'm actually hoping to do a few more videos on some Golden Dawn decks. I've got these 2, Golden Dawn Magical Tarot and Robert Wang's Golden Dawn Tarot. We might take a look at those in a future video. But I hope you guys will also consider joining me in class. As I said, I'm teaching every Sunday, and all the information's on my website, 22 Teachings. You'll see the link at the end of the video. If you want to get past classes, the videos are there. Some of them you have to buy, some of them are free. I've got tons of study tools and resources and all kinds of stuff on there. So I really hope you guys will take advantage of that, especially if you're interested in the really deeper esoteric implications of the tarot. And as Case liked to say, tarot is so much more than just a divinatory tool, so much more than just used for fortune telling. He called the tarot the key to the wisdom of the ages. And I truly believe it to be that, and to be the greatest tool and mirror for the mysteries. So again, thanks for joining me, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.